Welcome back in. Testicular cancer is often diagnosed in young men ages 15 to 35, and it doesn't always get the same attention other cancers do. Tonight, in this Link to Hope, how one Kentucky lawmaker is using his own journey to open up the conversation and bring awareness to other men. When a newly elected lawmaker from Carter County went to Frankfort, he hoped to be a voice for others. What State Representative Patrick Flannery couldn't have known is that one of the things he would advocate for would be so personal.
All I can say is what a difference a year makes. This time last year, I was battling stage 3 cancer.
Still learning the ropes in Frankfort in December of 2021, then 40-year-old Flannery saw a change in his health.
I felt an unusual pain. I just wasn't normal and felt like it was something I needed to get checked out.
His doctors discovered testicular cancer. For Flannery, a husband and father of 2, hearing the words "you have cancer" was tough.
It was definitely a life-altering experience.
Flannery needed surgery, but later scans would reveal his battle wasn't finished.
The type that I had is actually a very fast-moving, fast-spreading form of cancer. It typically migrates northward.
He had 3 cycles of chemo, lost his hair, and finished up treatment on Good Friday in 2022. His journey also led him to co-sponsor legislation after talking with other cancer survivors. He successfully helped introduce and saw passage of House Bill 170 this year.
What this bill will do, it will require health plans to cover sperm and egg preservation. That wasn't the law. And the reason that's really important, particularly with women, is egg preservation can be an expensive process.
It's important, Flannery says, because if some women and men of childbearing years are diagnosed with cancer, they might delay treatment so they could afford this procedure. This March, Flannery also used his voice for a meaningful resolution on the House floor.
This resolution will acknowledge April as Testicular Cancer Awareness Month.
A link to hope this lawmaker is happy to provide.
As long as I'm in the legislature, that's something I plan on filing that resolution and kind of being that spokesperson on that topic.
And we appreciate him sharing his story. Flannery says he wants men to know that testicular cancer is a very treatable disease. And in May of last year, in fact, he was declared cancer-free. For more information on testicular cancer and information on the work Kentucky Cancer Link does, look for the Link to Hope tab on WKYT.com.